would you both care to share your individual takes about how VP Harris's race and sex have been characterized and used this election cycle? I think that's an interesting question, and one that I think has only been taken up superficially in mainstream media. That's why people like you are so important. Talk to me about race, sex, and how it's been used to, how it's influenced this election.
I think the Democratic Party and corporate media decided to run with identity politics, right? Instead of focusing on who is Kamala Harris politically, what are her policies, what's her platform. Part of that could have been because of there wasn't a platform for a while, like, to be honest. But I think that's a mistake. And I don't know why they choose to do this strategy. She's a woman. She's a Black woman. She's Black. She's Indian. I don't care. Voters like me, I don't care what your ethnicity, that doesn't determine if I'm going to vote for you. I'm not voting for you based on your race. I'm not voting for you based on your gender. And I think what the Democratic Party may not realize is that when they lead with that, it gives a way for legitimate criticism that this candidate may be an empty suit. This candidate, maybe they don't have a lot of policies, or maybe they don't really have a mission or an agenda to focus on that. And there is a lot of focus on that. Guys, she could be the first woman. I saw this with Hillary Clinton's campaign. I saw it with Barack Obama's campaign. He could be the first Black president, and I just think we need to move past that as a society. I think we need to focus on their record. I think we need to focus on their platform and what are they going to do for the American people and also marginalized people in this country.
Is there any value, particularly in, say, 2020, in a Joe Biden choosing Kamala Harris, not because we just want to sort of assign our sort of political aspirations to the selection, i.e., I'm Black, he picked a Black person, he must really like Black people, which I think I agree with you is sophomoric, and history just shows it doesn't matter, it doesn't help, right? But I think Joe Biden, when he chose Kamala Harris, was trying to gesture to Black voters that he would take a Black agenda seriously, and that he hadn't and that he didn't take lightly the fact that his election only happened because of Black women in the South. And so his commitment to choosing a Black woman vice president and a Black woman Supreme Court justice wasn't just a performative gesture, but an actual way of showing voters that he cared about these issues vis-a-vis this risk he's taking. Choosing a Black person is always a greater risk in a room full in a white supremacist society. And so he's saying, look, this is like my down payment on an actual policy. Now, I'm not saying Joe Biden had a great policy for Black people. I'm just saying I'm just thinking about different political logics that might have been playing out besides just, we're going to put on a show here.
She wasn't his first choice. Joe Biden wanted Amy Klobuchar, and I don't think she's great either.
Which is a terrible choice. I didn't understand that one at all. I still don't get that one, even now, in retrospect.
Yeah, I don't think she's great either, but he was pushed to select Kamala Harris. So that's one thing. She wasn't his number one choice. And I think we need to take a deeper look about what representation actually means. I mean, we had representation with Barack Obama. What did he do for the Black community, right? We're talking about Black wealth tanking under his presidency. We're talking about him going to Flint, Michigan and pretending to drink dirty water in front of a room of Black people, militarizing the police in Ferguson. What did he do? Right?
Well, he didn't mobilize the police in Ferguson per se, but he certainly didn't offer any critique of the militarization of Ferguson, to be sure. And there was an opportunity to use his bully pulpit to change the outcomes on the ground. Just want to be clear.
Well, you know what I mean. But
yeah, I don't want anybody to
I think that it's a shame that people are falling for this again. And now there's Kamala Harris. And now people are saying, oh, she's going to help Black people. What has she been doing to help Black people? I mean, people need to take a good look at Kamala Harris' prosecutor record, right? So for me, a lot of people point to me and they'll say, oh, you're not supporting Kamala over Gaza. It's not just about Gaza. It's about her prosecutor record. It's about her bragging about being the top cop in California. And I am not pro law enforcement in any way, shape, or form. So when I look at Kamala Harris, I see someone who locked up a lot of Black men. I see someone who charged parents for truancy, went after these parents, and in a result of that, putting their kids through the school to prison pipeline. That's what I see when I look at Kamala Harris. So to me, it doesn't matter. I don't care that she went to HBCU. A lot of people do. White people go to HBCUs too. I don't care that she was an AKA. None of that means anything to me. I'm looking at what has she done to the Black community. One can point to Joe Biden and say similar things about his record with the Black community, his past. Joe Biden being friends with racists like Strom Thurmond. Joe Biden making comments that he doesn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle. Like all these types of things that I think I really do wish as a community we would pay more attention to what is done and not just what someone looks like or what school they went to.
Let's go there. I'm glad you said that, and I don't disagree with any of that. I think that the superficial politics, identity politics in particular, are an easy sort of lure for particularly our communities. I'm talking about Black people. We're encouraged to vote Democrat because they care about us, and if it's a Black person running, it's seen as a kind of a sign of fidelity to the race to vote for a Black person, even if that Black person is operating against one's interest. I remember in 2008 when I strongly supported Cynthia McKinney and Rosa Clemente, and in 2012 when I didn't vote for Obama for the second time, there was a bizarre criticism that I received that I was a race traitor, and it's like, no, I'm not voting for Barack Obama in the interest of Black people. Right, I'm not choosing. It's not like I chose John McCain. It's not like I chose Mitt Romney. I chose people who I thought would have a better, powerful, more compelling agenda for Black people, and I should say, who would put us in a position to have better alternatives in the mainstream parties if we're going to go there. This time around, that sentiment is still pervasive, but there are also people who are saying something different. I'm thinking about, for example, Angela Davis, the legendary activist, scholar, who said she was asked in Paris last month who she was voting for. And she said, do I really have to answer that question? I'm certainly not voting for the person leading the Republican Party. And then she went further, though, because she certainly didn't want to dismiss the Green Party and other parties, like her friend, our friend, my friend Cornel West, and Claudia de la Cruz. Of course, she ran for president in the Communist Party in the 80s. Angela Davis has been a Green Party member for a long time. She and I both have been Green Party members for a long time. So I want to be very clear when I lay that out, that she's not coming out of nowhere with this. But what she said was, when we engage, she said, the point of winning is not to put people into office only because of their race or their gender. She said, when we engage in electoral politics, it can't be just because a particular individual is running for office. She said, it is to enlarge the terrain of mass struggle, to guarantee a space for the trade union movement to win victories, for the women's movement to win victories, for people of color to win victories, for working and poor people to win victories. That's why we urge people to vote, isn't it? She's saying this in France for context. Now, her argument was something that seems to resonate with everything you said, except Angela Davis ends up saying, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. Angela Davis says, and I'm not, this isn't an appeal to authority, well, Angela Davis said it. I'm just giving you a perspective here, because I want us to think through sort of the way different people who are undoubtedly radical, undoubtedly leftists are thinking about this. She said, it's not just about electing Kamala Harris. It's about opening space for those of us who are more radical than Kamala Harris to put anti-capitalist and anti-racist programs forward and increase the pressure of change, especially in the first place when it comes to the genocide being inflicted on the people of Palestine. So she said, I'm still a communist, I'm still all these things, but I am voting for Kamala Harris, not because I believe in Kamala Harris, she says, but because basically I want to pick my opponent. I want to pick my enemy. And we have a wider terrain of struggle with her as president than with Donald Trump as president. What do you make of that argument?
I think that Angela Davis is going along with the status quo. And I understand that she was a former Black Panther, but I think this is a class issue. And I think this is something that we do need to talk about when it comes to the Democratic Party. It is very clear to me, it seems like people that are of a certain class, regardless of race, they tend to be okay with the status quo. You know, let's elect Kamala Harris and try to push her left, right? How did that work out for the squad members and Joe Biden, right? Like, how did that? It's just. When I think about the Black Panther Party and what they fought for, the Black Panthers knew that the U.S. government was not going to help their people. So the Black Panthers started to help their people themselves. So they started mutual aid. They built clinics, the free breakfast program. That's where that comes from. Because they knew they weren't getting the help that they needed from the U.S. government. And I feel like what Angela Davis should be doing is empowering people to organize and mobilize within their communities instead of saying, I'm just going to vote for Kamala Harris and that'll open up a space. Because it doesn't really open up a space. That space is open to people based on class and status and certain networks. That's the reality there. Those that are not taking donations from corporations, from the military industrial complex, are often shut out of those spaces. Cori Bush will tell people about that. Jamal Bowman will tell people about that. So this idea of just have everybody under this big tent and everything will work out okay in the Democratic Party, that has already been proven by Justice Democrats that that strategy does not work.